Good morning and welcome to Practical Christian Lessons. There are some updates here with the mic. I'm Joshua Pearsall. Watch yesterday's video for a little bit about that and about a huge video you should be watching that came out on Monday or Tuesday. It's called Learning and Defending the Faith. Go watch that. It's a huge resource. Other than that, we're going to get right on into Wisdom of Sirach, chapter 23. O Lord, Father and Master of my life, do not leave me to their counsel, nor let me fall because of them. Who will set whips over my thoughts, and the discipline of wisdom over my heart, so they may not spare me in my errors, nor neglect me in my sins? Lest my mistakes be multiplied and my sins abound, then I would not fall before my adversaries, and my enemy would not rejoice over me. O Lord, Father and the God of my life, do not give me haughty eyes, but turn me away from evil desire. Do not let gluttony or lust overcome me, nor give me up to a shameless soul. My children, hear the teaching of my mouth, for he who keeps it will not be conquered. A sinner will be overtaken by his lips, and a slanderer and arrogant man will be made to stumble by them. Do not accustom your mouth to vows, nor make a habit of using the name of the Holy One. For as a servant who is continually beaten will not lack bruises, so also he who makes a vow and continually names the Holy One will never be cleansed from sin. A man who swears many oaths will be filled with lawlessness, and that plague will not depart from his house. If he offends, his sin will be on him, and if he overlooks it, he has sinned doubly. If he swears in vain, he will not be declared righteous, for his house will be filled with trouble. There is a way of speaking comparable to death. May it not be found in the inheritance of Jacob, for all these things will be far from the godly, and they will not be involved in sins. Do not accustom your mouth to lewd expressions, for this is sinful speech. Remember your father and mother when you sit in council with great men, lest you forget yourself in their presence, and by habit act foolishly. Then you will wish you had never been born, and you will curse the day of your birth. A man accustomed to abusive words will never discipline himself as long as he lives. Two kinds of men multiply sins, and a third kind will bring down wrath. A soul heated like a burning fire will not be quenched until it is consumed. A man whose whole body is given to fornication will not cease until the fire burns out. To a man who is a fornicator, all bread is sweet. He will not grow weary until he dies. The man who transgresses against his marriage bed says to himself, "Who sees me?" Darkness encircles me. The walls of my house hide me, and no one sees me. Why should I be afraid? The Most High will not remember my sins. How his fear is the eyes of men. Yet he does not know that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, and look upon all the ways of men, and observe even the secret places before all things were created. Everything was known to him, and the end of all things is also known to him. This adulterer will be punished in the city streets, and where he does not suspect it, he will be seized. So also the woman who forsook her husband and brought in an heir by another man, for she first disobeyed the law of the Most High, and second, she transgressed against her husband. And third, in her fornication she committed adultery, and bore children by a stranger. She will be brought before the assembly, and there shall be a visitation of her children. Her children will not take root, and her branches will not bear fruit. She will leave behind her memory as a curse, and her disgrace will not be blotted out. Those left behind will know that there is nothing better than the fear of the Lord, and there is nothing sweeter than to give heed to the Lord's commandments. Man, if that isn't like a mirror of Proverbs. not quite. It's like a slightly blurry mirror. But I mean, it's using the father and children. Generally, the assumption is son, but father and children dialogue that's so common in the Proverbs. You see tons of mother and father comments in the Proverbs and my children. And then, of course, this huge reflection, right, on sinning and really the consequences of sin. I'm going to focus. I feel like adultery. I'm talking about them both. There are 2 of the 10 commandments in here. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Of course, that one's. I hope everyone knows that one. If not, go talk to your pastors about why they're not preaching on it. I don't think we need to say much in the Christian life to know it's a sin, though unfortunately in some parts of the secular world. And I know it's gotten into the church a bit, unfortunately, where there is sometimes this idea that adultery can be okay in situations like, oh, they're unhappy in their marriage. Oh, they're going to get a divorce anyway. Oh, she doesn't love her husband. They're just together because it's a arrangement for benefits. I'm just like, that's not good. That is not good. For a long time, and unfortunately it's starting to erode, even just generic culture recognized marriage is sacred. But it seems, at least in our Western American culture, that is starting to move away, which is really bad. Even in other parts of the world, like allow polygamy, they still honor the sanctity of marriage and say you need to stay within the wedding or within the marriage vow, no matter how many people you're married to. You've made a marriage vow. You have to honor that vow. And that ties nicely into vows. The fourth commandment, off the top of my head, I'm not going to read through them in my head right now. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. Often we hear it's about swearing, but it's about taking a vow in the name of the Lord. Well, that's one of its purposes. And don't take a vow in the name of the Lord that you don't intend to keep. You don't know if you can keep, because if you break it, well, now you've taken the name of the Lord and you've caused a problem. And then the other intention of it, just because it reminds me of this commandment, and Paul repeats this in Romans, but it's said in the Old Testament as well. Because of you, talking to Israel, in the case of Paul, Israel being the church that has sprouted up, right? The church is the continuation of Israel. So he's talking to Gentiles and Jews in Romans when he says this. We know that from the letter. He addresses both, where he says the nations blaspheme the Lord because of you. And that's because the Israelites took the name into the world of the Lord. We are the Lord's people, and then committed idolatry, committed terrible sins against their neighbors. That's not them marching in and taking it like as the Lord commanded them. It's stuff after that happened. Just constant failures from Israel in their entire history. And we, the church, I mean, one can argue I'm not going to get into that, but we too, as the church, have failed throughout history. We're not perfect either. We're not in a better boat as far as the track record of succeeding goes. It's a good thing the Lord is merciful. I will leave that there. I think that would be, I lost my bookmarks. That would be hours worth of discussion there in and of itself on each of those topics. So I'm not going to go on my little side tangent like I want to, but I will leave that there with you guys. Think on that, reflect on that, what it means to not just marriage, but any relationship and that you enter, any covenant that you enter, whether that's friends, whether that's family with the Lord. Take how serious that relationship is and the bond there and what comes with that commitment. Think on it, reflect on it. Think on how you're living up to it or not living up to it and how you need to change. And then think on, what does it mean that I bear the name of the Lord? That I, in my case, Joshua Pearsall, you, viewer, whoever you are, right? What does it mean that I bear the name of the Lord? That I am a representative of Christ, that I'm supposed to shine his light, that I'm supposed to be salt of the earth. And if I'm not doing that, if I'm besmirching the name of the Lord, then what does that mean? Think on those things. With that, you guys, go in peace. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.